right now, I want to read to you a story that I've been looking forward to reading for a while to you. I think you're going to like it. Here, of course, it's time to go into booktube land and check out a short story for Fiction Friday.
There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can roll the image, make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur, or sharpen it to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits.
Yes, rest in peace, Joe Stefano. All you guys who are involved with the Outer Limits, thank you for being there and hanging out. You were awesome. Love you so much, you guys. Oh, man, what a great time. And Vancouver really is a beautiful area. I know the city itself is pretty bedraggled because of drugs and stuff like that, but man, good place. So, welcome to the BookTube section of the show, the former Star Trek Writing Fellow channel on Rumble and on YouTube. Our latest episode just went out, and that is about our conversation that we got to have last week regarding AI and whether or not AI is being shown by readers to be the preferred short story writer compared to popular short story and novelist writers in the fantasy genre. We referred to John Della Rosa's video about that and took a lot of great comments about it, talked about AI skimming off of AI, different types of things that will be influenced by AI, things that will probably remain pretty strong because people need the output to be strong for engineering or boats or something like that, so the output won't get corrupted too much. But other things that will get corrupted, and in fact, AI will be created to corrupt it for political reasons and things like that. Anything that is tied to a polis is probably going to be messed with. Anything that has to do with personal information and needs most likely will be free of that. So we talked about writing. I think, as I mentioned, there's going to be a cachet for the personal touch, for the writing that you know and you've been promised is brought to you by someone who is a real human being here in this blink of an eye on earth that God gives to us, communicating with you and touching you. That person in the future, and you are speaking to that person from the past. Those types of things, a conversation with someone. The person will be there, and that will be part of the cachet. And of course, there's going to be a lot of people eating up the AI stuff like candy, just like music for people. Some people, it's just wallpaper. They don't think about the background, who's on that instrument, how do they bend that note, what's on that, how electrified is that, the distortion is cool, the moment of that is really good. They just play it in the background. They don't think about it. It's not part of the way they operate. Other people are really into it, that sort of thing, very curious and inquisitive about it. Same thing I think is going to be for a lot of writing. AI will suffice for them. Now, that is going to take away a lot of money from people who are personally trying to put out their stuff. But I do think that the identity of the person and the human contact and circles with friends is going to be a really big deal. So I thank you, first off, for being here as we get ready to launch a publishing company called Liberty Conspiracy Publishing. Human to human contact is going to be the subtitle of it, or human to human writing. And I want to show you one of the humans I've met in my life who's a wonderful, wonderful guy. And I'll tell you the personal story, the uncanny personal story about meeting Richard Christian Matheson some other time. But there he is, Richard Christian Matheson, also known by his friends as RC. RC, born in 1953, he was known as one of the splatterpunks in prose writing circles who came up around the early 1980s, 81, 82, 83, 84, as Simple Minds would say. And along with John Skip, David Scow, and Richard Christian Matheson, and maybe a couple others. You might consider Clive Barker to have been involved with some of that. He came from the British side. Very grisly, bloody stuff. But RC actually had a start way before that. When RC was 18, he was hired by Universal Television to work for a multi-year contract. It was like a 5-year contract to work for Universal TV. He was 18 years old. He was, I think, involved with Three's Company for years. That's RC. So RC is a multi-talented person himself, the scion of Richard Matheson. Richard Matheson, of course, started as a journalist and he went in the U.S. Army, started as a journalist, went out to California, wrote fiction, got involved writing radio and westerns, and also short stories, and became a writer for The Twilight Zone. Hit it big with multiple things. I Am Legend, considered one of the greatest horror novels of all time. The Shrinking Man, science fiction horror, all sorts of amazing stuff from Richard Matheson. Novels, westerns. He's won the Golden Spur for his westerns. I think that's the Journal of the Gun Years. He won it for Journal of the Gun Years. He's also written The Beardless Warriors about World War II guys, because, of course, he was in the Army in World War II. He saw a lot of stuff. And so Richard Christian Matheson, I'm showing Richard Christian Matheson first, and then, of course, you'll see Richard here. You probably will recognize Richard. There's Richard right there. And I think that's a picture that was taken by RC. So the reason I'm bringing these guys up, and I'm going to go into detail more about the authors on Wordsmith Wednesday sometime, but you can see just lots of great stuff from RC. Lots of cool stuff created by probably his most famous novel. He's got tons of collections. And then, of course, if you switch over and you see Richard Matheson, of course, you see Richard Matheson's incredible output in volumes, not even in television shows and movies. Stir of Echoes, Kevin Bacon in that one. What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. Somewhere in Time, known as the movie Time After Time with Malcolm McDowell and Mary Steenburgen. So many things. So many things. You can see the westerns he's done. Just incredible. And those are just his novels. Then he's got his collections. Look at these collections. I mean, he was almost as prodigious as Harlan Ellison. Okay. So probably most famous for the Shock collections. You can see these are sort of famous covers that they put out. Shock. Very cool. Amazing stuff. And I have all of those, of course. And, so this is a story. I read this story when it was first published in Twilight Zone magazine. And this is called Where There's a Will. And I want to give it to you because it's by father and son, by Richard and Richard Christian. And RC, if you're watching, I hope to get RC on. I haven't been in touch with RC for a while since I've been sick and stuff, and want to contact RC because he's such a good guy, and the circumstances about us meeting are remarkable. It just uncanny stuff. It has to do with the scar on my head. It's just wild. So the last story in this book, Dark Forces, which was edited by Kirby McCauley. This is the hardcover version that I picked up. I just got an extra copy. Has in it. There's all sorts of great stories in here. Let me just give you a quick overview. It's got The Mist by Stephen King, of course. Very well-known story by Stephen King, as are so many by King. And I know David Knight was talking about Stephen King a little bit earlier, and 6/22/63. And I've met Stephen King. He's a nice guy, and Joe Hill is one of his two sons is a great guy too. He lives about an hour away on the seacoast here in New Hampshire. Good guys, nice people, super nice people, despite all the demands on their time. But obviously very left in their politics. Dennis Etchison, wonderful guy, passed away about 4 years ago. Robert Aikman. Oh, we have to finish The Swords. Carl Edward Wagner. We've read Styx by Carl Edward Wagner, probably his most famous story. T.E.D. Klein, the editor of Twilight Zone magazine when I was a kid, sending stories to them when I was 14. They have in this one, Children of the Kingdom. That is one of the 4 novellas that is inside his collection called Dark Gods, which among anything published in horror, if you get T.E.D. Klein's Dark Gods, that is one of the most monumental, greatest horror collections of anything you will possibly get. And in it, I think, is the most effective horror novella that I've ever read, called Nadelman's God. And I'll tell you about that sometime. It is unbelievably good. We've got Gene Wolfe in here, of course. Theodore Sturgeon is in this, Dark Forces. Let's see what other ones. Ramsey Campbell, Ramsey's in here. Clifford Simak, as some people say, Russell Kirk, old professor from Hillsdale College. In the English department, Lisa Tuttle. Lisa's great. Robert Bloch, of course, the author of Psycho. Edward Gorey, the cartoonist, also wrote short stories. Ray Bradbury, Joe Haldeman, Charles L. Grant. I never got to meet Charles, but he was friends with friends of mine. Manly Wade Wellman, amazing. And this one, which is third to last, Where There's a Will, by Richard Matheson and Richard Christian Matheson. So we're going to go to page 361. And as the B-52s would say, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Okay. Don't forget, of course, Richard Matheson's Duel with Dennis Weaver. Steven Spielberg, of course, directing it. Just you've seen it in the opening of my show, as the truck hits the back of Dennis's little Dodge. What is it? I think it's a Valiant he's driving, ironically so. All right, so here we go. This is called Where There's a Will by Richard Matheson. Rest in peace, sir, and Richard Christian Matheson. RC, this is for you, man. He awoke. It was dark and cold, silent. I'm thirsty, he thought. He yawned and sat up, fell back with a cry of pain. He'd hit his head on something. He rubbed at the pulsing tissue of his brow, feeling the ache spread across his hairline. Slowly, he began to sit up again, but hit his head once more. He was jammed between the mattress and something overhead. He raised his hands to feel it. It was soft and pliable. Its texture yielded beneath the push of his fingers. He felt along its surface. It extended as far as he could reach. He swallowed anxiously and shivered. What in God's name was it? He began to roll to his left and stopped with a gasp. The surface was blocking him there as well. He reached to his right, and his heart beat faster. It was on the other side as well. He was surrounded on four sides. His heart compressed like a smashed soft drink can, the blood spurting 100 times faster. Within seconds, he sensed that he was dressed. He felt trousers, a coat, a shirt, and tie, a belt. There were shoes on his feet. He slid his right hand to his trouser pocket and reached in. He palmed a cold metal square and pulled his hand from the pocket, bringing it to his face. Fingers trembling, he hinged the top open and spun the wheel with his thumb. A few sparks glinted, but no flame. Another turn, and it lit. He looked down at the orange cast of his body and shivered again. In the light of the flame, he could see all around himself. He wanted to scream at what he saw. He was in a casket. He dropped the lighter, and the flame striped the air with a yellow tracer before going out. He was in total darkness once more. He could see nothing. All he heard was his terrified breathing as it lurched forward, jumping from his throat. How long had he been here? Minutes? Hours? Days? His hopes lunged at the possibility of a nightmare, that he was only dreaming, his sleeping mind caught in some kind of twisted vision. But he knew it wasn't so. He knew, horribly enough, exactly what had happened. They had put him in the one place he was terrified of, the one place he had made the fatal mistake of speaking about to them. They couldn't have selected a better torture. Not if they'd thought about it for 100 years. God, did they loathe him that much? To do this to him? He started shaking helplessly, then caught himself. He couldn't let them do that. Take his life and his business all at once? No, goddamn them, no. He searched hurriedly for the lighter. That was their mistake, he thought. Stupid bastards. They'd probably thought it was a final, fitting irony. A gold-engraved thank you for making the corporation what it was. On the lighter were the words, "To Charlie, where there's a will." Right, he muttered. He'd beat the lousy sons of bitches. They weren't going to murder him and steal the business he owned and built. There was a will. His. He closed his fingers around the lighter and, holding it with a white-knuckled fist, lifted it above the heaving of his chest. The wheel ground against the flint as he spun it back with his thumb. The flame caught, and he quieted his breathing as he surveyed what space he had in the coffin. Only inches on all four sides. How much air could there be in so small a space, he wondered. He clicked off the lighter. Don't burn it up, he told himself. Work in the dark. Immediately, his hands shot up, and he tried to push the lid up. He pressed as hard as he could, his forearms straining. The lid remained fixed. He closed both hands into tightly balled fists and pounded them against the lid until he was coated with perspiration, his hair moist. He reached down to his left trouser pocket and pulled out a chain with 2 keys attached. They had placed those with him, too. Stupid bastards. Did they really think he'd be so terrified he couldn't think? Another amusing joke on their part, a way to lock up his life completely. He wouldn't need the keys to his car and to the office again, so why not put them in the casket with him? Wrong, he thought. He would use them again. Bringing the keys above his face, he began to pick at the lining with the sharp edge of one key. He tore through the shreds and began to rip apart the lining. He pulled at it with his fingers until it popped free from its fastenings. Working quickly, he pulled at the downy stuffing, tugging it free and placing it at his sides. He tried not to breathe too hard. The air had to be preserved. He flicked on the lighter and looked at the cleared area above. Knocked against it with the knuckles of his free hand. He sighed with relief. It was oak, not metal. Another mistake on their part. He smiled with contempt. It was easy to see why he had always been so far ahead of them. Stupid bastards, he muttered as he stared at the thick wood. Gripping the keys together firmly, he began to dig their serrated edges against the oak. The flame of the lighter shook as he watched small pieces of the lid begin being chewed off by the gouging of the keys. Fragment after fragment fell. The lighter kept going out, and he had to spin the flint over and over, repeating each move until his hands felt numb. Fearing that he would use up the air, he turned the lighter off again and continued to chisel at the wood, splinters of it falling on his neck and chin. His arm began to ache. He was losing strength. Wood no longer coming off as steadily. He laid the keys on his chest and flicked on the lighter again. He could see only a tattered path of wood where he had dug, but it was only inches long. It's not enough, he thought. It's not enough. He slumped and took a deep breath, stopping halfway through. The air was thinning. He reached up and pounded against the lid. "Open this thing, goddammit," he shouted, the veins in his neck rising beneath the skin. "Open this thing and let me out!" "I'll die if I don't do something more," he thought. "They'll win." His face began to tighten. He had never given up before, never. and they weren't going to win. There was no way to stop him once he made up his mind. He'd show those bastards what willpower was. Quickly, he took the lighter in his right hand and turned the wheel several times. The flame rose like a streamer, fluttering back and forth before his eyes. Steadying his left arm with his right, he held the flame to the casket wood and began to scorch the ripped grain. He breathed in short, shallow breaths, smelling the butane and wood odor as it filled the casket. The lid started to speckle with tiny sparks as he ran the flame along the gouge. He held it to one spot for several moments, then slid it to another. The wood made faint crackling sounds. Suddenly, a flame formed on the surface of the wood. He coughed as the burning oak began to produce gray, pulpy smoke. The air in the casket continued to thin, and he felt his lungs working harder. What air was available tasted like gummy smoke, as if he were lying in a horizontal smokestack. He felt as though he might faint, and his body began to lose feeling. Desperately, he struggled to remove his shirt, ripping several of the buttons off. He tore away part of the shirt and wrapped it around his right hand and wrist. A section of the lid was beginning to char and had become brittle. He slammed his swathed fist and forearm against the smoking wood, and it crumbled down on him, glowing embers falling on his face and neck. His arms scrambled frantically to slap them out. Several burned his chest and palms, and he cried out in pain. Now a portion of the lid had become a glowing section of wood, the heat radiating downward at his face. He squirmed away from it, turning his head to avoid the falling pieces of wood. The casket was filled with smoke, and he could breathe only the choking, burning smell of it. He coughed, his throat hot and raw. Fine powder ash filled his nose and mouth as he pounded at the lid with his wrapped fist. "Come on," he thought. "Come on! Come on!" he screamed. The section of lid gave suddenly and fell around him. He slapped at his face and neck and chest, but the hot particles sizzled on his skin, and he had to bear the pain as he tried to smother them. The embers began to darken, one by one, and now he smelled something new and strange. He searched for the lighter at his side, found it, and flicked it on. He shuddered at what he saw. Moist, root-laden soil packed firmly overhead. Reaching up, he ran his fingers across it. In the flickering light, he saw burrowing insects and the whiteness of earthworms dangling inches from his face. He drew down as far as he could, pulling his face from their wriggling movements. Unexpectedly, one of the larvae pulled free and dropped. It fell to his face, and its jelly-like casing stuck to his upper lip. His mind erupted with revulsion, and he thrust both hands upward, digging at the soil. He shook his head wildly as the larvae were thrown off. He continued to dig, the dirt falling in on him. It poured into his nose, and he could barely breathe. It stuck to his lips and slipped into his mouth. He closed his eyes tightly, but could feel it clumping in the lids. He held his breath as he pistoned his hands upward and forward like a maniacal digging machine. He eased his body up a little at a time, letting the dirt collect under him. His lungs were labored, hungry for air. He didn't dare open his eyes. His fingers became raw from digging, nails bent backwards on several fingers, breaking off. He couldn't even feel the pain or the running blood, but knew the dirt was being stained by its flow. The pain in his arms and legs grew worse, and with each passing second, until shearing away, agony began to fill his body. He continued to press himself upward, pulling his feet and knees closer to his chest. He began to wrestle himself into a kind of spasmed crouch, hands above his head, upper arms gathered around his face. He clawed fiercely at the dirt, which gave way with each shoveling gouge of his fingers. "Keep going," he told himself. "Keep going." He refused to lose control, refused to stop and die in the earth. He bit down hard, his teeth nearly breaking from the tension of his jaws. "Keep going," he thought. "Keep going." He pushed up harder and harder, dirt cascading over his body, gathering in his hair and on his shoulders. Filth surrounded him. His lungs felt ready to burst. It seemed like minutes since he had taken a breath. He wanted to scream from his need for air, but couldn't. His fingernails began to sting and throb, exposed cuticles and nerves rubbing against the granules of dirt. His mouth opened in pain and was filled with dirt, covering his tongue and gathering in his throat. His gag reflex jumped and he began retching, vomit and dirt mixing as it exploded from his mouth. His head began to empty of life as he felt himself breathing in more dirt, dying of asphyxiation. The clogging dirt began to fill his air passages. The beat of his heart doubled. "I'm losing," he thought in anguish. Suddenly, one finger thrust up through the crust of the earth. Unthinkingly, he moved his hand like a trowel and drove it through to the surface. Now his arms went crazy, pulling and punching at the dirt until an opening expanded. He kept thrashing at the opening, his entire system glutted with dirt. His chest felt as if it would tear down the middle. Then his arms were poking themselves out of the grave. And within several seconds, he had managed to pull his upper body from the ground. He kept pulling, hooking his shredded fingers into the earth and sliding his legs from the hole. They yanked out, and he lay on the ground completely, trying to fill his lungs with gulps of air. But no air could get through the dirt which had collected in his windpipe and mouth. He writhed on the ground, turning on his back and sighed until he finally raised himself to a forward kneel and began hacking phlegm-covered mud from his air passages. Black saliva ran down his chin as he continued to throw up violently, dirt falling from his mouth to the ground. When most of it was out, he began to gasp as oxygen rushed into his body, cool air filling his body with life. "I've won," he thought. "I've beaten the bastards, beaten them." He began to laugh in victorious rage until his eyes pried open and he looked around, rubbing at his blood-covered lids. He heard the sound of traffic and blinding lights glared at him. They crisscrossed on his face, rushing at him from left to right. He winced, struck dumb by their glare, then realized where he was. The cemetery by the highway. Cars and trucks roared back and forth, tires humming. He breathed a sigh at being near life again, near movement and people. A grunting smile raised his lips. Looking to his right, he saw a gas station sign high up on a metal pole several hundred yards along the highway. Struggling to his feet, he ran. As he did, he made a plan. He would go to the station, wash up in the restroom, then borrow a dime and call for a limo from the company to come and get him. No, better a cab. That way he could fool the sons of bitches, catch them by surprise. They undoubtedly assumed he was long gone by now. Well, he had beat them. He knew it was, he knew as he picked up he knew this as he picked up the pace of his run. Nobody could stop you when you really wanted something, he told himself, glancing back in the direction of the grave he had just escaped. He ran into the station from the back and made his way to the bathroom. He didn't want anyone to see his dirtied, bloodied state. There was a payphone in the bathroom, and he locked the door before plowing into his pocket for change. He found 2 pennies and a quarter and deposited the silver coin. They'd even provided him with money, he thought. The stupid bastards. He dialed his wife. She answered and screamed when he told her what had happened. She screamed and screamed. "What a hideous joke," she said. "Whoever was doing this was making a hideous joke." She hung up before he could stop her. He dropped the phone and turned to face the bathroom mirror. He couldn't even scream. He could only stare in silence. Staring back at him was a face that was missing sections of flesh. Its skin was gray and withered yellow bone shone through. Then he remembered what else his wife had said and began to weep. His shock began to turn to hopeless fatalism. It had been over 7 months, she had said on the phone. 7 months. He looked at himself in the mirror again and realized there was nowhere he could go. And somehow, all he could think about was the engraving on his lighter. Where There's a Will by Richard Christian Matheson and his father, Richard Matheson. And Mr. Macaulay puts the notes in here beforehand about them. Just to read this to you. It is not unusual for a son to follow in the writing footsteps of his father, but it's uncommon for the two to collaborate. Here is a rare and fortunate exception. Richard Matheson is a successful, at that time, Hollywood screenwriter, author of many classic throat-gripping short stories and novels of terror. Duel, Prey, A Stir of Echoes, The Shrinking Man, I Am Legend, as well as one of the key writers to work with the late Rod Serling on the famous Twilight Zone television series. His son, Richard Christian Matheson, still in his mid-20s, has already sold a number of short stories to magazines and anthologies, and has begun a career in television scriptwriting. He shows promise of making a strong mark of his own. Their combined talents concentrate here on the claustrophobic aspects of terror. Where There's a Will. That's a great one. I've been waiting months to give you that one. I love that story. I remember the first time I read that. Wow. RC, thank you for being such a nice guy. When I met you in Brighton, got to talk to you on the phone a number of times. Good guy. Remember RC, Richard Christian Matheson. Check out his work. Go to Fantastic Fiction. Take a look over at RC's stuff and take a look at Richard's stuff. And of course, I think you'll enjoy lots of the stuff that was turned into films, obviously by Richard Matheson. And I think you'll enjoy lots of the TV shows on which Richard Christian Matheson worked. There's Created By from 1993. His collection Mediums Rare, Scars, Dystopia, Pride, Corruption at the Crossroad. And he has novellas. Ritual of Illusion was the most recent one. That's really cool. That's sort of like a take on Hollywood stardom and stuff like that. That's a good one. So there you are, everybody. No wonder he's often in the best horror, Richard Christian. Thanks for hanging out with the former Star Trek writing fellow guy, and I appreciate that. I wouldn't have known RC when I was over at Star Trek because we were at the Paramount Studios and he was over at Universal. But maybe down the line I would have met him and we would have hung out and stuff like that. But we got to hang out in the end because we met in Brighton, England, and he was a great guy. We became immediate friends and just a terrific person. And if you ever get a chance, look for the nonfiction work that RC, Richard Christian Matheson, and his father, Richard Matheson, did on life after death and the metaphysical. Because much like Michael Crichton did for his book Travels, they did a lot of traveling and they investigated stories of the metaphysical and supernatural and stuff from a sort of skeptic's point of view, a materialist point of view. And of course, they came to the conclusion that, yes, that you don't get the material world from the material world. That's a tautology. And it's wonderful stuff that they put together if you get a chance to get it. So I'll leave you with that. We'll talk more about Richard Matheson and RC as we go on to Wordsmith Wednesday sometime. And I hope you like that story. Let's check out what the reactions were from everybody as we get ready to close off the show. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Harry Hart, thanks for being there. And let's see, Skunk Hollow, appreciate it, from Michigan Man, Knights of the Storm. Thank you for being there. Pigeonverse, hello, Pigeonverse. Good to see you. Don't forget Pigeons from Hell. From Robert E. Howard. That's a great story, Pigeons from Hell. That's been turned into TV shows. Little black and white ones from the old days. The old days. You can find it on YouTube, actually. So, all right. I'm going to close things off for former Star Trek writing fellow I will leave you with the Outer Limits Going Away theme. Please remember to spread the word about the show. If you like what we're doing, please donate over at Rumble. You can donate or become a subscriber at my Substack, the Gardner Goldsmith Substack. And for a few dollars a month, you'll get the news updates. You'll get all of that material. And, of course, you'll be supporting what we do here every night to break apart the news and open it up to all of you. Plus, you'll be supporting the former Star Trek writing fellow. So it's the Gardner Goldsmith Substack. That is cool. You can donate at Rumble as we're live. You can become a monthly subscriber at Rumble. And inside the audios for Liberty Conspiracy audios each night at my Substack, you'll see my PayPal is there as well as my post office box. So just remember that. Usually Monday through Friday, you go there around 11 o'clock, 10:30 at night. It should be there. Or you can go back to one of the older ones and you'll see it down at the bottom of the post. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. We will talk again. I will see you hopefully in the chat for America Unplugged tomorrow and then Knights of the Storm. That's going to be very cool. And I'm going to leave you with a short one of the Outer Limits voice, the control voice saying farewell, and then we will say farewell. So here it is, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out. And I appreciate everybody liking freedom and fiction. Have a good night. God bless.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to the Outer Limits.